I'm Ryan Green.
And I'm Zack Taylor.
And together we are Commander Social. And this week we are bringing to you a deck tech of Purphoros Bronze Blooded from the new Theros Beyond Death set.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to get sneak attacky up in here. All right, so before we get into all that, we want to thank everyone out there in audience land. Thank you so much for listening and watching. We really, really appreciate it. And if you are watching this video on YouTube, please remember to hit the like button,
the subscribe button,
and the bell for ring-a-ding notifications. All right, yeah.
So we want to thank our patrons. Thanks for pledging your money and also spending time with us in our Discord. It's great fun. We love the input and all the awesome things that interactions that go on there. This week we have a special patron that we want to thank, David Saunders. I met him first in MF Vegas last year. We talked about trading a Yawgmoth, a foil one.
Of the foil variety,
Yep. And I didn't realize how much that card was worth, but he made me a good deal on the trade, and I got him to sign it because I like it when people sign the cards that I get from them, and that'll be a reoccurring theme later. But yeah, so this month for our patron contest, if you are a patron by the end of the month of February, you will be entered in to win a Theros Beyond Death collector's booster. So I opened up one of these last night and got some cool stuff. There's some lands and some foils and some full arts, and it's a good deal. But also, Ryan, what's about the Brawl Tournament?
Oh, yeah, we're going to throw down on Magic Arena. We're going to do a Brawl Tournament again, and this time it's going to be everyone uses a legend from Theros Beyond Death. I'm already starting to think about like what I want to brew.
Me too.
And, this episode could be fuel. If you're one of our patrons,
yeah.
It's a patron-only tournament. Purphoros Bronze Blooded is a legend from Theros Beyond Death, so you could build some sort of brawl deck around this. It won't be as spicy as the one we've got for you today. But it would be pretty spicy. Would be pretty sweet. So, I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be towards the end of February and more details to come.
Also, the prize for winning that tournament is Theros Beyond Death collector's booster. So
if you're a patron of ours, you have 2 chances to win a collector's booster this month. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. Collector's boosters are dope. So, Ryan, where can you find you on Twitter?
All right. Well, if you want to find me on Twitter, I'm at Green Geek.
And I'm at Z4CK38. And together we're at Commander Social. And we don't want to forget our our Twitter followers. So, this month's contest is for 3 packs of Theros Beyond Death. Enough to draft with or enough to just open. And
I heard that you're guaranteed to get at least 3 rare and or mythic rare cards. Is that right, Zach?
I'm not really sure anymore for that particular set.
So, Zach, what's been going on in your personal life, man?
Not much, man. Doing the regular thing. I've done a little bit to change up my my grooming routine. I have a friend on Twitter that's been we've talked for a long time, and he I believe he's a listener. But his name on Twitter is Bearded MTG, but he's at Infect Hall, HAL. You'll see it on the screen. But he hand makes like stuff for like men's like beard grooming type products, and he sent Ryan and I a few cool things. We got some beard / face balm, which he told me you could use this just on your face to make it smooth. And I got the Necromancer one. And Ryan, which one did you get?
Oh, he knows me well. I got the Pyro one.
Right?
Yep.
So it's a little can of stuff here. You just put your finger in it, and then lather it up, and then put it on your beard.
Ooh, it smells creamy.
Yeah, smell this one. It's kind of spicy.
Yeah, like maybe a little citrusy.
Yeah. Can I smell yours?
Yeah, go for it.
I like that. I think it sounds great. I've been using mine for about a week, and I'm not gonna claim to have an awesome beard, but I do have somewhat of a beard, and
definitely a beard.
Yeah, it's hair. I have facial hair, right? And it feels pretty good, and it smells nice. And someone got a compliment on it, but that's not all he sent us. He sent us some soaps, and for those at home, we're showing these things. There
will be some crinkling on the microphone. Yep. Apologies to Mike.
Yep. So this black one here is like a charcoal sort of deal, and this other one is not charcoal sort of deal. And I use the charcoal deal sort of one earlier today, and it's why it looks kind of weird in my bag because I had to dry it off to put it back in the bag so I could show it. But it smelled good, it felt good, and I was like, yeah. I mean, I usually use like body wash, but the bar shot, I was like, yeah, I could see myself using this. And the final thing he sent us, which is pretty awesome, are some full art unlands. Which un says this?
It's the third one. Unstable.
Unstable, and he signed them, so he definitely listens and knows that I like when I get cards from people, I like them for him to sign them because I like to remember who they came from. So,
absolutely.
It was really cool for him to send us this stuff to try out and tell you about. So again, it's BeardedMTG at Infect Hall on Twitter.
Yeah, and with a Twitter handle like BeardedMTG, you can probably trust that the beard stuff is going to be pretty good.
I've seen pictures of his beard on there. So it's pretty legit, and he has an Etsy store where you can get all these products too. So there's gonna be a link to that in the show notes and the YouTube description. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. And I got my haircut last week.
Word.
But Ryan, what's been going on with you, man?
All right, well, it's time for your hashtag MTG Dad moment, and this one is for my son Malcolm. I took them out to the park the other day, and this park has a rope net that goes from like one side of the playground to the other. And it also goes like down to the ground.
Those are hard.
And yeah, like my daughter, finally conquered that because that's like the last thing in the park that they could conquer. Like the slides are okay, the swings are okay. But yeah, this rope net, it's hard and it takes like a lot of core strength and stuff. And my son was just like bound and determined to do it. And like my daughter can go across it just fine. Like I can just kind of like let her do her thing, and it's really cool. But my son, he just turned 2, and he started from the ground, and he like climbed up, and the entire time I'm there just like hovering around him just in case he's going to fall because I don't want him to get hurt. And he made it from the ground all the way up to the other slide, which is the slide that kind of goes like down into the right. So it's kind of like the more steeper one. It's not the curly Q one. And he was so proud, and I was so proud. It was crazy. Like I just like he did it all on his own, and I just kind of like went like a little crazy, like clapping for him and stuff. And he had just the biggest smile on his face. And it was like one of those memories of like, this is him like overcoming a challenge and like challenging himself to do it. And seeing that was, I don't know, it's like one of the joys of being a parent,
Oh, I bet.
And and then he just kept doing it. And
that's pretty cool.
Every time, like, his foot, like he would just like, I'm like, oh no, don't fall. But he's totally a pro now. And I don't know, I just couldn't be prouder.
I definitely he's done it he's tried to do the one at Mesa Rosa at the playground back there. And he's had problems where I'm like, because I'm doing the same, I'm like, don't fall. But it's awesome that he can do it now. I'm proud of him. So that brings us to another thank you that we do every week, and that's Mr. Mike Condon. Thank you for the audio engineering. Thank you for the friendship and just being there for us. And also thank you for the polysorbate 60.
Just everything a growing boy needs.
That's what I hear. And I think you have a thank you for the intern, don't you?
Yeah, we gotta thank Tiny Hands. Elliot, we gotta thank you for helping narrow down this deck. Elliot is somebody that I consult with sometimes when we're working on decks, and I was like, hey, I need to cut like 5 or 6 final cards. And then he sent them, and I cut a couple of them. I kept a couple of them.
I mean, what I think was awesome about that is like, I was looking at the list of 2 things to cut, and he's like, cut all these. And I was like, oh, it's like, those were the exact ones I was going to say to cut.
Yeah, it's definitely, you guys had like the exact same thoughts. It wasn't you just not doing it, right?
Yeah, no, totally. Elliot, man, big brain, little hands.
All right. Okay, so that's going to move us right on into a segment we like to call Commander Rules. So on Commander Rules, we like to take a deep dive into the comprehensive rules of Magic the Gathering. And we're going to read a rule out loud, and we're going to see how it hits you, all right?
All right.
Okay, here we go.
Let's hear it.
This week's rule is 700.5. A player's devotion to color is equal to the number of mana symbols of that color among the mana costs of permanents that player controls.
Okay.
A player's devotion to color 1 and color 2 is equal to the number of mana symbols among the mana costs of permanents that player controls that are color 1, color 2, or both colors.
So hybrid mana symbols count as both, right?
Right. Or if you had like Xenagos and you needed green-red, and you had like something that had green and red on it, the green counts towards it and the red counts towards it.
So if you had like, yeah, I got you.
All right. So one thing to note here, and this is relevant because we're talking about Purphoros this week. Yeah. Lands are colorless, right? And I think that's something that a lot of folks don't necessarily know. So lands don't count towards your devotion, obviously.
Right.
Well, maybe not obviously, but we're telling you that now. Yeah. So hopefully that is something new, and it's also related to the episode. So I think that's kind of fun. This sounds like something you knew.
Yeah, there's things I knew. I mean, definitely I feel like the lands being colorless, sometimes people have problems with because it feels a little counterintuitive. It's just something that I've always known, so I've never thought against it. But as a
this mountain isn't red.
Yeah, it's like, what? As a new player, I could be like, what? But now we've told you, so now you know.
All right, so
the more you know.
All right, so now on into the main topic. Purphoros, bronze blooded, and I'm going to go ahead and read out our commander here. It is 4 and a red for a legendary creature god enchantment. Purphoros is 7/6 indestructible. As long as your devotion to red is less than 5, Purphoros isn't a creature. Other creatures you control have haste. That's going to be important.
Haste is important.
2 and a red, you may put a red creature card or an artifact creature card from your hand onto the battlefield, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Okay, so that's our commander. It's going to be a mono red deck this time, one of my favorites, and Purphoros is going to kind of act like a sneak attack in the command zone, right?
I like it.
You like it? Okay.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, so let's jump right on in and talk about all of the different slot theory that we're going to do here for this deck. So I'm going to list them all out, and then we'll go back and hit individual cards.
Okay.
So this is 37 land deck.
Whoa, 37, not 38?
You know what? One of the cuts at the very end was a land because I'm greedy. It happened.
Right. Let's hear it.
Maybe 38 would be better, but there's so many fun cards in here. It's really hard. It's really hard to cut. Okay, so we've got 10 ramp spells, 10 card draw spells, 17 big boys. All right, and to note, you cannot do Eldrazi with Purphoros. He specifically says a red creature card or an artifact creature card. Eldrazi are not artifacts. They're colorless. So we're not going to be sneaking any sort of Annihilator or Artisan of Kozilek here.
Womp, womp, womp.
But there's still a lot of awesome stuff in this deck. And then, so I think there's 17 of those. 4 other creatures, just cuz. And then another category here that I called Keep My Stuff.
Is that the opposite of OPC?
It's MPC. My people's cards. I don't know.
My personal cards.
Yeah, my personal cards. There you go. Because that's the thing. With Purphoros, you're sneaking a creature into play, and then it hits somebody, and then you're like, oh, now I don't have it anymore. There's some ways around that, and we'll get to those later. We've got mass removal 4, single target removal 5, and then 7 flex spots to round it out.
Okay.
And the flex spots are pretty cool in this deck, but we'll get to those towards the very end. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is the lands. We said 37, and there's only a couple of really interesting additions here. Do you want to read out this first one?
Yeah, it's called Spine Rock Knoll. It's a land, a colorless land. I don't know if you knew.
Even if it was red.
Yeah, right?
Because it is.
It has Hideaway. This land enters the battlefield tapped. When it does, look at the top 4 cards of your library, exile 1 face down, then put the rest in the bottom of your library. Tap. Add 1 red mana to your pool. Pay 1 red. Tap. You may play the exiled card without paying its casting cost if an opponent was dealt 7 or more damage this turn.
All right, so we're going to be flinging in some big flying dragons and other cards. It's going to be pretty easy to deal 7 damage to an opponent during a turn.
Okay.
So this land is probably going to trigger all the time. You're going to be able to get that Hideaway no problem in this deck, I think. So pretty good inclusion. The next one is this is a spicy one. It's called Endless Sands. This is a land desert. It taps to add colors to your mana pool, or you can spend 2 and tap exile target creature you control. Okay, that's not the greatest thing. You don't really want to be doing that all that often, but it's this last ability. 4 mana, 4 mana tap, sacrifice Endless Sands. Return each creature card exiled with Endless Sands onto the battlefield under its owner's control.
Yeah, I think this card's real cool. You showed it to me the other day, and I was like, yeah, that feels like that can get abused real quick.
If you don't have any of the Keep My Stuff going, you could just sneak something out, hit somebody, remove it. And the next turn, do it again, or sneak out 2 things, right? And keep the best one. And then eventually you've got 3 or 4 awesome, big cards underneath there. And then you can just sacrifice it at the end of turn step to the person to your right, or even on your turn if you still got Purphoros in play, because they'll all have haste. And get in there for like an alpha strike. So it's just really a way to like kind of like get that late game reach going. And I think that's really cool.
Agreed.
So those are the lands we're going to talk about. Let's move on into ramp. Okay. So we have 10 cards in here. A lot of these are going to act, they're your mana rocks, right? But we really want a lot of them in this deck because number one, Purphoros costs 5. Even being indestructible, it's pretty easy to like keep it out and play, but there are a lot of things that
there are things that exile. Yeah.
And if you do like end up having Purphoros be a creature, that Swords of Plowshares is going to be able to get it. So you really want to be able to replay that. And also, I think the big point here is you really want to be able to do like 2 or 3 activations of Purphoros per turn. And I think that's really important. So we've got a lot of rocks in here. Do you want to just read a couple? We don't have to read them all. Just like
you got Soul Ring, you got Wayfarer's Bauble, you got Arcane Signet, Worn Power Stone, Thran Dynamo, etc., etc., etc.
I think there's a really interesting one in here, and it's from Battle Bond, and it's a pretty sweet card. It's called Victory Chimes.
Yeah,
this is a 3-mana artifact, and it says untap Victory Chime during each other player's untap step, and then tap a player of your choice adds colorless mana. So you can kind of like use it as a political tool to like help people during their turns if they need like, if you're trying to get down one of the arch enemies. But in this deck, it'll make it to where if you've only got 2 untapped lands, right? You go to your opponent's turn, and then you get to untap Victory Chimes, and maybe you could sneak in a blocker from your commander. And I think that's really cool.
I think that's cool too. I think Victory Chimes is a cool card. Is it expensive?
No, it's really not. It's like about $1.
I'm gonna have to pick up a few of those. Because they're going to go up after this episode because hashtag amateur MG finance. Heard it here first.
Indeed. All right. And so we've also got Solemn Simulacrum in this deck, and that is a very well-known card.
Yep.
And in this deck, it's going to act kind of like a 3-mana like ramp plus draw card, right?
Yeah.
Because you get to like sneak it out, ramp yourself, and then when it dies to the trigger at the end of the turn, you just get to draw a card. That's awesome, right? Yeah. And you can do it like as a blocker. Right, you can like sneak it in, block with it, and still gonna die and like get your card. I just think it's gonna be really good.
That's pretty versatile. I like it.
And we've got a new one. It's a new player to the mono red decks. It's Dockside Extortionist, and this card is pretty sweet. It's 1 and a red for a 1/2 Goblin Pirate.
Yep.
And it says when Dockside Extortionist enters the battlefield, create X treasure tokens where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. Okay, so this card is pretty pricey. It's also pretty awesome.
Yeah.
This card does like a really crazy thing. And we've got some stuff later on that we're going to talk about in the episode that work really well with this card.
Yeah.
Namely Cloudstone Curio, but we will talk about that in a bit. So that's kind of the ramp cards I wanted to hit on. Really, there's just, like you said, like your Soul Rings, your Thran Dynamos, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And we really do want to run those in this mono red deck. But I think some of the choices, like I said, Solemn Simulacrum, I think is going to be really cool.
Yeah.
Burnished Heart can be pretty cool too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as long as you don't get greedy and tap down.
Yeah. We're here's looking at you, Brando.
Sorry, Brandon.
Okay, so up next we've got card draw, always important in the Commander format.
Yep.
And we've got some really interesting ones here. They're actually really neat. The first one up is Magus of the Wheel. Okay, this is 2 and a red for a creature. And Magus of the Wheels is a 3/3, and it says 1 and a red tap, sacrifice Magus of the Wheel. Each player discards their hand, then draws 7 cards. Okay, this is going to remind folks a lot of Wheel of Fortune, right? In this deck, since you have haste, that's kind of one of the big downsides of Magus of the Wheel. Is like you have to play it and then wait for it to go all the way around the table, and then you can spend 2 mana and do it and get your cards. Well, Purphoros gives everything haste. So you can actually wait, like do a whole bunch of stuff during other people's turns. The person to your right's turn, you can fling this out. It'll have haste, spend 2 mana, and then sack it and draw a whole bunch of cards, right?
Yep.
And I think that's really cool because it's kind of like a 5-mana Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
But it's also a creature, and there's a lot of fun things you can do with that in this deck specifically.
Yep.
All right, so what's our next one here?
We got Sandstone Oracle. It's 7 for an artifact creature Sphinx. It's a 4/4 with flying that says when Sandstone Oracle enters the battlefield, choose an opponent. If that player has more cards in hand than you do, draw cards equal to the difference. That seems pretty good. You sneak that in at the end of, or someone draws a bunch of cards, you can sneak it in, or if you sneak it in at the end of the player to your right's turn. Like that's pretty legit.
You know, your opponent's got that Consecrated Sphinx going, and you're like, you know what? That looks pretty fun. I think I'll do that too for 3 mana, right? Because it's an artifact creature. I think it's an auto included here and like really sweet.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so we've got another 7 mana card here. This is Dragon Mage. This is 5 red for a 5/5 Dragon Wizard. One of the coolest creature types ever.
Word.
Right?
Word.
I know your boy Niv Mizzet agrees.
Dragon Wizard.
Okay, so Dragon Mage has flying, and whenever Dragon Mage deals combat damage to a player, each player discards their hand and then draws 7 cards. So it's another wheel effect, right? And it's on a 5/5 flying body. And like, I don't know, it just gets to come out of nowhere. People are not going to see it coming. They're not going to plan for it. And then one of the things that's kind of a downside with this deck is like, you know, you're using your cards. You just throw a card out there, it gets to attack, and then you lose it, right? So you're going to get to low hand size pretty quickly. And something like this to like refill and draw a whole bunch of big monsters, it's kind of exactly what this deck is looking for.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the deal with red, I think, is a lot of times you just play out your hand and it's like, I got to refill. And like, it's hard to do sometimes in mono red.
All right, so what do we got next?
We got Noble Spine Dragon. This is a 7/5 creature dragon that costs 5 red. So is this like 7 CMC tribal?
It is. It really is.
It's starting to get there. So this is a creature dragon with flying that says, when Noble Spine Dragon comes into play, you may discard your hand and draw cards equal to damage dealt to target opponent this turn. Man, that is legit. Like, yeah,
this can do some crazy work,
because
right?
like nobody. So like flying's a thing. So you play it. Nobody has flying. You attack whoever, and then you know you get those cards too.
Well, and I mean, here's the thing: it's a 7/5, right?
Yeah.
And then let's say that you had that and some other 5/5 flyer.
Right.
Now you're drawing 12, right? Because it's to the damage dealt.
Yeah.
That is a big deal.
Because you can sneak out multiple creatures, right?
Yeah, it does not tap Purphoros. You can, if it gets late enough in the game and you've got a whole bunch of mana rocks, you can do 3, 4, 5 creatures.
Yeah, that's pretty legit.
And I think it's going to like allow the deck to kind of just snowball. Mm-hmm. So I'm a really big fan of that. Up next, we've got a non-creature way to draw some cards, and this is Corvast's Fury, another Battle Bond hit. This is 4 and a red for a sorcery. For each player, choose friend or foe. Each friend discards all the cards from their hand, then draws that many cards +1. And then Corvast's Fury deals damage to each foe equal to the number of cards in their hand, right? So this is another wheel effect. It's at sorcery speed. It is 5 mana, but it also punishes your opponents, which I really like. And I
do like punishing my opponents.
There's been so many times I'm playing a game with this guy over here on my left. Yeah. And he'll have like 20, 30 cards in hand when he's playing Niv Mizzet. And I really want to just be like, I'm going to draw like 5 cards and go ahead and take 30. Like that seems like something I want to do. And the other thing is I often play with Zack, and Zack is a known Cyclonic Rift sympathizer. And
it's true.
And so I really want to like cast this card after you Cyclonic Rift, like when you're sitting to my right.
Yeah.
And just like make everybody take a whole bunch of damage. It just seems really awesome.
Yeah, that's bad. You should feel bad.
So that's kind of the card draw suite. And I actually think this card draw is sweet. There's a lot in here, and there's some incidental stuff as well. Those are kind of the ones I want to talk about that are like relevant to this deck. But there are other cards. I don't know. I just really like the idea of just like wheeling like every other turn and drawing a whole bunch of big giant flying monsters. Like it just seems awesome.
It does. Like I used to really like dislike getting wheeled, and now I'm just like, whatever, sure. Like I had plans with this hand, but let's see if it can get better.
Yeah, let's see what new plans we can find.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and most of the time, honestly, like when I wheel or get wheeled on, it usually gets better. I'm just like, whatever, let's do it.
All right, so up next, we're going to talk about the big boys of the deck, and these are all of the fun things to sneak in, and not just card draw dragons either. We've got some sweet stuff here.
Yep. The first sweet thing we've got here is Ancient Stone Idol for 10, breaking that 7 CMC tribal business. We got a 12/12 artifact creature golem that has flash and says this spell costs 1 less for each attacking creature. Trample. When Ancient Stone Idol dies, create a 6/12 colorless construct artifact creature token with trample.
The Ancient Stone Idol is a construct.
That's crazy. Like you're definitely like, I mean, you don't even care about the mana reduction business, really.
Yeah, you really don't.
Honestly, like to the player on your right, you flash it in with Purphoros, and then it leaves you with your 6/12.
It's hard to tumble with a 6/12.
Yeah,
that's a lot of stats.
That's a lot of booty.
And here's the deal, right? You can just, on your turn, just like 3, look, it's a 12/12 trample coming at you. Yeah. Right? And then when it dies, you get a 6/12 blocker. Yep. That's amazing. That is like super huge value.
Yeah, like definitely if you can hit them for 12, or even if they use removal on it, I still think that's a win because 1, it was going to die anyway. And 2, they're wanting less removal.
And it's got trample baked in. Yeah. Right? And they don't see it coming because Purphoros gives everything haste. It's so good. It
is good. I love it.
All right. So up next, we're going to return to the 7 converted mana cost tribal. We got Angrath's Marauders. And this is a pretty sweet one. This is 5 red for a 4/4 human pirate. If a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. So Dictate of the Twin Gods, this is not... but it is a way to double all of your damage. And for 3 mana, getting this out there, like when you can activate Purphoros 3 or 4 times in a turn, this is going to be a game ender. And I don't know, it just seems really sweet. What do you think?
I like it. It sounds pretty good. Pretty good.
It's also really fun to be able to run something like this because it does it for only you. It doesn't do it for all of your opponents, right? So it's not like Dictate of the Twin Gods. It's not like Furnace of Wrath. You're not suffering back like the double damage. You're just doubling your output, and I love that part about this card. Like the non-symmetry of it kind of is broken in a deck like this.
Yep. I like it. So the next one is Archwing
Dragon.
I'm trying to pull it up here. I'm not seeing it.
It's 2 red.
Thanks you, Ryan.
For a 4/4 creature dragon with flying and haste. The haste is a little bit redundant most of the time. But hey. At the beginning of the end step, return Archwing Dragon to its owner's hand. Okay. What? So in a normal deck, that would be kind of bad. You'd spend 4 mana, you get to attack for 4, and then it comes back, and that's not great. But in this deck, if
you stack your triggers right, I believe Archwing comes back to your hand first.
Yeah, so it's kind of like an infinite blocker if you need it, and it's a flyer too. So, and if you got that victory chimes that we talked about earlier, like basically like if you have like 3 opponents, you just leave open 6 mana and victory chimes, right? And you can block each of them like once, like their biggest thing for a turn. So this kind of adds like a little more controlling aspect to the deck. There's some like control stuff you can do here too, which I think is really cool. And that's why I kept this card. This is actually one of the cards that TH consulted me to cut.
We didn't,
but I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I understand. I
don't know. I just think it's really neat. But I don't know, folks out there, like, let us know. Is this not the kind of card you should run in a Purphoros deck? Should we be more like all aggressive focused? Not in my book. But let's see what y'all think. What do we got next?
So now we've got a pretty interesting looking card here, Bloodfire Colossus. It's 6 red for a 6/6 creature giant that has the ability pay a red, sacrifice Bloodfire Colossus. Bloodfire Colossus deals 6 damage to each creature and a player. So this feels like, I mean, you pull, you sneak it in, you attack, and then you pay 1 red, sack it, and basically it's a board wipe.
Yeah, and it's going to be a 4 mana board wipe. Yeah, right. It's going to be like 2 red with Purphoros to do this.
I mean, that's the same price as a Wrathly God, like. And the thing is, you can do this at instant speed. You can't do Wrathly God at instant speed unless you run Vidalcan Ori or something like that. So I like this quite a bit.
And I like the idea of doing this to the person to the right's turn, right? Yeah. And then getting to like untap and have no blockers in your way and just like pound, like, you know, just like Purphoros big giant molten fists going to town. Like it just seems awesome.
Yeah, no, there's so much cool like synergy in this deck that it seems like a lot of fun.
All right, so the next card we're going to talk about is Hellkite Tyrant, and this is a beast. I mean, it's a dragon, but this card is awesome. It's 4 red for a 6/5 flying trample dragon. Whenever Hellkite Tyrant deals combat damage to a player, gain control of all artifacts that player controls. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 20 or more artifacts, you win the game. Okay, so that upkeep thing we're kind of ignoring in this deck.
Yeah.
It's still really cool. Like, if you can somehow manage to land it and just cast it, that's fine because it will have haste and you will get to steal a bunch. And we're running a lot of artifacts in this deck. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility to hit that alternate win condition, but it's not really our focus here. Our focus is spend 3 mana, hit somebody for 6, take their soul ring, take their mana rocks, and then next turn you just get to pump out even more big giant creatures.
Yeah.
Like, I just think this card's really good in this deck.
Yeah, it feels like it furthers your agenda so much. Like, because if you're playing against me, I get like a bajillion artifacts out, and you're like, oh, I'll take whatever I want.
Exactly. I don't know. Yeah, it seems good. And there's another dragon that deals with artifacts in this deck,
right? This hoarding dragon, my precious. This card is hoarding dragon. It's 3 red for a 4/4 creature dragon with flying. It says, when hoarding dragon enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact card, exile it, and shuffle your library. When hoarding dragon dies, you may put that exiled card in your owner's hand. Man, how are you going to kill that hoarding dragon?
Oh, wait,
yeah.
So it's a 3 mana, hit somebody in the air, and then tutor your deck for an artifact?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, there's a couple of really cool artifacts we're going to talk about later this episode.
I bet so.
Yeah, this card is really cool in here. All right, so up next, we've got Thundermare.
I love that card so much.
Right? Like, this is like old school from Weatherlight.
It is.
Thundermare is 5 and a red for a 5/5 Thundermare. Thundermare is unaffected by summoning sickness.
Is that like a Thundercat?
Thundermare, ho! But basically, that's just haste. And then when Thundermare comes into play, tap all other creatures. Oh, so if this is the first thing you sneak out with Purphoros, you clear the way for everything else.
Yep.
Right? That's pretty big game in this deck, right?
Yeah.
I just, like, it's such a weird, quirky card, but to get to run it in here is so awesome. Because, like, normally you play this and you're like, oh, okay, Thundermare is going to get somebody for 5, right? But Thundermare is going to come in, tap everything else down, and then you're going to, like, sneak in, like, 1 or 2 more things, and you're just going to just smash somebody, just completely obliterate them, all thanks to this really cool fiery horse.
Yep. So now we've got World Gorger Dragon for 3 red. It's a creature nightmare dragon. Nightmare dragon, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's Ashiok's dragon. It's a 7/7 that says flying trample, or it has flying trample. When World Gorger Dragon comes into play, remove all other permanents you control from the game. When World Gorger Dragon leaves play, return the removed cards to play under their owner's control. Yeah, that feels like to test protection pretty hardcore.
Yeah, so this card is pretty tricky in this deck, right?
Yeah, it is. Something else that I've just kind of realized, like, most of these creatures have I would say on average, like 2-ish red pips. And if you're like, you get enough of those out on one turn to attack, oh, suddenly isn't Purphoros online?
Yeah, suddenly Purphoros can get into the red zone as well.
Yeah.
I think there's some really neat things about World Gorger Dragon. The first is, let's say somebody casts, like, you've like done the thing and you've got a bunch of creatures in play, and somebody casts like a Wrath of God.
Right.
Right? You can sneak out World Gorger Dragon.
Yep.
It's going to remove everything, and then because of the delayed trigger from Purphoros, at the end of the turn, the World Gorger Dragon goes out and everything comes back into play. There's another little known fact about this, which is the stuff that comes into play from World Gorger Dragon comes into play untapped. So it's also a way to get a whole bunch of your mana back.
Oh, snap. I didn't even think about that.
It's like really good, right?
Oh my gosh.
And like the other bit is like, so here's like the cool thing, right? Like you sneak out 1 or 2 things, you attack with them. Then you sneak out World Gorger Dragon. They go away. Right. And in turn, World Gorger Dragon leaves. They come back and they stick around.
Oh, yeah, because they're different cards because they've been exiled and they come back. Oh, that's dirty.
Yeah, like World Gorger Dragon is a way to keep my stuff.
Dirty dog.
Right? It's going to be so good in here. All right, up next is a really fun entry. I'm really excited about this one. It's going to be kind of one of those like achievement unlock things. Like I really want to do this one.
I'm interested to see it.
So this is Homura Human Ascendant. This is 4 red for a legendary creature 4/4 human monk. Okay. Homura Human Ascendant can't block.
Word.
When Homura is put into a graveyard from play, return it to play flipped. So this is one of those old school flip cards from Kamigawa block. All right. When it flips, it becomes a legendary enchantment.
I like those. I like legendary enchantments.
And it's from when it gets put into the graveyard. Remember.
Yeah.
Okay. It says creatures you can control get +2/+2, have flying, and red, this creature gets +1/+1
until end of turn. Fire breathing?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
man.
2/2 flying and fire breathing, all for the cost of 3 mana.
Yeah, that's legit.
And it gets to attack. It's like 3 mana, like crazy, amazing Anthem that also gets to get in there for 4.
Yeah.
Man, this card seems really sweet.
Yeah, like the more and more I think about this, I used to play a sneak attack deck when Urza Saga was out, and like I love doing these kinds of things, and just now like seeing like all the different like options you have, it's pretty sweet.
Okay, so that's it for the big creatures in this deck. There are some other ones. There's a couple other ones. There's a deck list in the show notes. But these were the ones that have like some really cool interactions that I really wanted to talk about. There's others, just some big giant like flying double strikers. Like all that stuff exists and it's in there. I wanted to first talk about Felon of the Third Path. Go ahead.
He's a 1 red for a 2/3 legendary creature, human artificer. That for 2 in a red you can tap him. It says create a token that's a copy of target creature card in your graveyard, except it's an artifact. Instead, in addition to its other types, it gains haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step. I feel like there's going to be some creatures in your graveyard. Like that seems like a inevitability.
Yeah, this is one of the cards in the deck that you really don't want to sneak in.
Yeah, exactly, because you want to use that ability multiple times.
And the whole thing is like Purphoros like gives you fodder. Like just like hit somebody with a dragon mage, draw a new hand. Yep. It gets in the bin. Felden creates a copy. Draw 7 more. Like it's actually entirely possible to like super mill yourself in this deck, which is crazy for a mono red deck. I just love it. Okay. So the next creature that's not like a big giant dragon is Goblin Engineer, and this is from Modern Horizons.
Is this spawn carrier of a Goblin Chump Blocker?
It can be, and actually in this deck you might use it that way.
Okay.
So it's 1 in a red for a 1/2 Goblin Artificer. When Goblin Engineer enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact card, put it into your graveyard, and then shuffle your library. Okay, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, word.
Okay. Then red and tap, sacrifice an artifact, return target artifact card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Okay. Normally this is troublesome because you don't have haste, and so if they can kill it before you get it back to around to your turn, you kind of did nothing. You just threw away an artifact and that's it.
But that haste
in this deck really enables it, and you can sneak it out, tutor your library, put something in the graveyard, block with it, and then use the sacrifice to return the card to the battlefield. So you can sacrifice a mana rock and get back Cloudstone Curio, for example. There's also Mirage Mirror in here. There's a bunch of really cool targets for this.
Yeah.
And I just love the idea that that we're building in redundancy in this deck, because we haven't talked about the cool thing that Cloudstone Curio lets you do yet, and we will a little bit later.
We'll get there.
But yeah, this card is really cheap, and it's from Modern Horizons, so it's pretty recent. And I just think there's really a lot of awesome interactions you can do with this.
Yeah, the card seems pretty dope. Another one we've got here is, it's a card that I'm always looking to find a way to break, and Ryan kind of did that earlier this week. But Stuffy Doll, it's a 5-cost artifact creature construct. Was this in Construct Tribal?
It was.
Okay.
Yep, of course.
I always think Stuffy Doll is a scarecrow for some reason, but I don't know. So Stuffy Doll again is a 0/1. Stuffy Doll enters the battlefield. Choose a player. Stuffy Doll is indestructible. When Stuffy Doll is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to chosen player. Tap, Stuffy Doll deals 1 damage to itself. I'm sure you got a way to abuse this. Let's hear it, Ryan.
Okay, so all right. So number 1, maybe somebody attacks you with a big giant thing, and they wouldn't do so if you had Stuffy Doll in play.
Word.
But you could sneak in Stuffy Doll to block and get that one-time big damage.
Yeah.
And that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I like that.
Surprise, Stuffy Doll. That just sounds awesome to me, right?
Yeah.
There's a couple of other things that are really cool. We were on Blasphemous Act in this deck because it's a deck with red in it, and that deals 13 damage to all creatures. So that's pretty sweet with Stuffy Doll, right? The thorn in your side, getting 13 to the dome pretty quickly. The other thing here is I should mention that if you sneak Stuffy Doll in, indestructibility does not save you from sacrificing it.
Right, because that's a trigger that's part of it's coming into play. Indestructible doesn't, makes sense to me.
And so the other fun trick we've got in here is Chandra's Ignition.
Oh, snap.
This card is sweet. It's 3 red for a sorcery. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each other creature and each opponent. Okay, this is a game ender. You can have big giant 7/7 flying dragons, and if you've got Stuffy Doll in play, Chandra's Ignition is going to hit that and hit the person that you named, plus hit the person that you named, right? Because it's going to hit the Stuffy Doll and it's going to hit them.
So that's 14, right?
Right. If you have a 7/7.
If you have 7/7, yeah.
I don't know. It just seems really amazing in here.
It does.
And like you, I'm always looking for a reason to run Stuffy Doll.
Yeah.
And actually, yeah. So the story is there was we were playing a game, and it was with some listeners, and it got down to the final
Peyton
two.
and Alan.
That's right. And it was down to the final two. And it was Alan, and he had like a giant 22 Yahenni.
Yeah, I had a bunch of 0-1 plant tokens, and he like wiped the board or something, and it just pumped Yahenni up way crazy.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh man, I can't do anything here. Like I'm like thinking about like, oh, well, I can do this way to get a bunch of cards out of my hand. But I was like, wait a minute, Yahenni doesn't fly, right? And so I like brought in Yahenni, or I brought in Stuffy Doll, and I was like, okay, now you can't attack with that big giant Yahenni, and it bought me a turn to like win that game.
Yeah, because he was at like 5 life, I think, something like that. Pretty close. It was 10 or less.
Well, no, he had just like sacrificed something to draw a bunch of cards and gain some life.
Oh, had he? Okay, I thought he was already low.
So, like, I definitely like it was enough to where I was going to be able to activate Goblin Charbelcher and then use Get to Fire to like burn him out.
Get to fire! Get to fire!
Yeah, right. Okay. So anyway, so that's your story digression. That's not about this deck. This deck does still run Stuffy Doll because it's sweet. All right. Yep. Okay. So now we're going to move on into the Keep My Stuff. Okay. And this is important. All right. So the first up we've got is Cloudstone Curio.
I think you should read that one. You seem pretty stoked. Actually, I've got it right here. Cloudstone Curio is a 3-cost artifact that says whenever a non-artifact permanent enters the battlefield under your control, you may return another permanent you control that shares a permanent type with it to its owner's hand. What? So let me get this straight. You got like big 7/7 that you snuck out for 3. And then you're like, yeah, here's like something cheap I don't care about, or whatever, something that you get a benefit from going to the graveyard. You sneak that out too, and then you return.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. So Cloudstone Curio does a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah,
in this
that's
deck.
pretty legit.
Basically, like you can sneak out the first one, like the really important one, whatever. Hit them with it, and then sneak out something that has like Bloodfire Colossus or whatever.
Yeah.
And like return the other creature that was going to die anyway, and then wipe the board. And then next turn, you've got the same creature to sneak out again. And I actually thought about running Ornithopter in here, oddly enough, so that like you can get into the loop where you like sneak out something big, attack them with it, post-combat lay Ornithopter, pick up the big thing.
Yeah.
And then next turn when you sneak something out, pick up the Ornithopter with it.
Oh, man.
Right? So there's some really cool stuff you could do in this deck with Cloudstone Curio. And we have some lower cost creatures like Feldon of the Third Path. Yeah. And I mean, some of our creatures are artifacts. Yeah. So, Ornithopter's not going to work. You'd have to do Kobolds of the Care Keep. Haha. It's a red 0/1 for 0 mana. Haha. Got there.
Why can't you use Ornithopter? Because it's a creature.
Well, yeah, but it says non-artifact. Right, so
it says non-artifact. Okay.
So, but anyway,
I knew it was coming.
It's gonna let us do like some crazy stuff in this deck. One thing I want to do with it, Dockside Extortionist.
Yeah,
I want to like bounce that and get a whole bunch of treasure tokens.
I knew that was gonna happen.
And then have Hellkite Tyrant and use those treasure tokens to win the game. Like, there's some really awesome, fun stuff in this deck.
This deck is pretty legit. I'm impressed.
All right, so up next on the cool sneaky artifacts, we have Sundial of the Infinite. Folks out there probably saw this coming, but this card is really cool. It's a 2-mana artifact, and it says 1 tap, end the turn. Activate this ability only during your turn. So yeah, you can't really end anybody else's turn.
So ending the turn means, so if you end in main 2, there's not an end step for you to sacrifice in.
Guess I keep all these big giant dragons.
I guess I can't. If there's no end step, there's no.
The thing is, trigger. I wanted to sacrifice these dragons. I really did.
But I can't.
But I can't because I ended the turn. I should have thought about it.
Jeez, I know.
And man, and this card just stays in play and you get to do it every turn. And it's just like starting from like 4 mana, you're like, okay, sneak out this big giant thing, attack, end my turn. After the attack's done, and the next turn sneak out another big thing, get to attack with both things. Yeah. And then it snowballs really quickly. It's like auto include in here.
Oh yeah.
And I just think it's a great card.
That's pretty, and it's what, 370?
Yeah, it's pretty cheap.
That's pretty impressive. Like I kind of like that. Another card that's in here, and I this is one of my personal favorite cards, especially for Yarok, but it's Erratic Portal. 4 mana artifact. It says 1 tap, return target creature to owner's hand unless its controller pays 1. Oh, so what I'm hearing now is for 4 mana, you sneak a thing out, you use Erratic Portal's ability, and it's like, oh, I could pay this 1 mana, but I just don't want to.
Yeah, it turns out choosing when to use these 1 mana effects is pretty good, like on Sundial of the Infinite and Erratic Portal. And the best part is, like, this is going to let you get the enters the battlefields again. It's going to let you do so many crazy things in this deck. And it's just going to let you have, like, that same thing over and over again. Imagine getting to do this on, like, Dragon Mage and just, like, attacking, like, wheeling the board away, then returning it, like, before you have to sacrifice it, and getting to, like, wheel every turn and, like, just go digging deeper, find that Goblin Engineer, to find the Classic Curio. Like, you're going to be able to, like, churn through cards in this deck, right?
Yeah, you're a bad person. You should feel bad with this deck.
No, I don't.
You shouldn't. This deck sounds like so much fun. Like, I hope you build it so I can play it.
I really want to. That's the downside of doing a podcast. Like, you build a deck and you're like, oh, now I really like you brew a deck and you're like, oh, yeah, that's pretty good. But then you talk about it, you're like, no, I want this.
Now it's for real happening.
I want this in my life. All right. Yeah. So another sweet artifact in here that lets you keep your stuff is Conjurer's Closet. This is 5 mana. It's an artifact. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. So again, if you stack your triggers right, you don't end up sacrificing the creature. It just gets to come back, and it's available as a blocker. Yeah, this is like the best thing you sneak out every turn you get to keep. And 5 mana is a lot. Sundial of the Infinite is probably the better version of this, but if you've got something with some cool comes into play abilities, right? Like a Solemn Simulacrum or something, like you can really do some work with this card. I don't know. I think it's great.
I think this next card kind of plays along those same lines. It's a Lifeline. It's a 5-cost artifact that says whenever a creature is put into a graveyard and a creature is in play, return the creature from your graveyard to play at the end of turn. So what I'm hearing is, so say you hard cast that fell into the 3rd path or whatever, and then your big creature comes in, does something crazy, attacks, obviously.
Right. Then, always attacking.
Yeah, always be attacking.
ABA.
Always be getting Big John. And then it goes to your graveyard as, it should do from your sneaking it in. And then it comes back into play at the end of turn. And then any ETB triggers happen again?
That's correct.
That's Value Town, bro.
I should note there is errata on this card.
Is there?
I'm going to read it. It says, whenever a creature dies, if another creature is on the battlefield, return the first card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So this works for your opponents. That's the kind of slightly downside here. And when you read the normal text that's printed on there, that's not very apparent. However,
that's still not that big of a downside.
Because all your creatures are the biggest ones.
Right.
And the deal is, it doesn't, like, let's say your opponent has a Birds of Paradise in play, and you sneak something out, like some big giant dragon, and you attack, another opponent. Right. And a turn, you have to sacrifice it. Cool. There's still a Birds of Paradise in play. Your big thing comes back. It doesn't have to be one of yours. It doesn't have to be, like, it could be any creature. When was the last time that there were no creatures in play in a game of Commander? Hardly ever. Well, I guess right after a board wipe.
Yeah.
But
I mean, unless you're playing me, I never play creatures.
But the point is, if there are no other creatures in play, you're probably winning anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's nothing blocking your big giant flying dragons.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think this card's sweet, and it's cool to finally have a place to use this.
This feels like a TH card.
Yeah, it's a really nice card. The downside is, again, your opponents can abuse it too. So, but it is, at the end step, right? So they can't just like infinite sack something to like Ashen's Altar. I don't know. So those are the cards that let you keep your things around. And like you said, there's World Gorger Dragon that's kind of, honorary member of this list as well. Okay. So we've got mass removal. We talked about we already talked about Chandra's Ignition.
There's some things.
Blasphemous Act. We've already talked about most of the cards there. Single target removal. These are all kind of staples. But we'll talk about a couple of them. The first one's Chaos Warp. You're going to run this in any red deck because it kind of breaks the color pie a little bit, but that's okay. Red needs the help.
Yeah.
Go ahead, read it out.
Yeah, it's a 3-mana card that you shuffle the owner target permanent shuffles into their library, then reveals top card of their library. If it's a permanent card, they put it into play. Yeah, I mean, like you said, staple.
All right, so we've got 2 that kind of function very similarly in the deck next. We've got Duplicant, which is 6 mana for a 2/4 artifact creature shapeshifter. when it comes into play, you imprint another creature on it and you exile that creature.
Yep.
And then as long as the card is exiled, duplicate's power and toughness is equal to that creature's power and toughness. This is a 6-mana artifact creature, so works with Purphoros.
Right.
You can sneak it in whenever to exile something. That's important. It's exile. That's great. And, you know, you can do fun things with this and Feldon of the Third Path as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, like, this really can become 3-mana removal because you sneak it in.
Exactly.
Right. And like, yeah, duplicate dies, but that card stays exiled.
Yep. It's like, would you pay 3 mana to exile target creature? Yeah, totally would.
Absolutely would.
And in mono red, you can.
Yeah.
So pretty sweet. And the next up, some folks might have seen this coming as well, is Meteor Golem. This is from Core 2020. It's 7 mana, 3/3 artifact creature golem. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target non-land permanent and opponent controls. This card's amazing, right? It's going to have a way to get rid of enchantments in mono red. That's important.
Yeah, it's hard to do in mono red.
And again, with Purphoros, it's a 3-mana removal spell that can even attack if you need to. I don't know. I just think it's great. And again, it's one of those things that's really fun to use with Feldon of the Third Path as well. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's really good.
Yeah, I think so too. This next card's a card that I think is real good that I particularly like personally want to play with. Like, I showed it to Ryan the other night. I was like, this is good, Ryan. I should play this. And he's like, yeah. It's Fires of Invention.
I should mention that we've moved on into the flex spots, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's totally fine. Keep going, though. This card's sweet in here.
Yeah, it's Fires of Invention. It's 3 red enchantment. You may cast spells only during your turn, and you can cast no more than 2 spells each turn. You may cast spells with a converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands you have, lands you control without paying their mana cost. I think you could do some crazy stuff here.
So here's the deal. It says you can only cast spells on your turn. Yeah. Turns out you can activate Purphoros still.
Yeah, that's not casting anything. Yeah.
So, and like you're going to spend all of your mana activating Purphoros and then just play big giant monsters out of your hand that get to stick around.
Right.
And they still have haste because Purphoros is in play.
Yep.
This card is like tailor-made for this deck. Because
TAYLOR.
Yeah, exactly. Zack tailor-made. I don't know. I think it's amazing, right? Yeah. I'd actually like, I've played against it enough on Arena, like in Standard, that I'm like really excited to try it in Commander, and I think this is the home for it. Okay, so up next we've got Flame Shadow Conjuring. This is 3 and a red for an enchantment. It says whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay red. If you do, put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of that creature. That token gains haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step. This is just redundancy with your Commander. It's a way to double up your creatures, right? You know, you pay 3 with Purphoros to get some big giant thing out, or, you know, I don't know, duplicate, and then you spend a red to copy it and get to remove 2 things.
Yeah.
Meteor Golem, get to remove 2 things. Big giant flying double strike dragon, get to have 2 big giant double strike dragons, like for 1 red mana once you've got this in play. And you know, it's an enchantment, it's the hardest thing to remove. I don't know, I think it's really good in here.
I think so too. This next card is again redundancy and kind of, you know, sort of what the deck was based on. Sneak Attack. It's an enchantment for 3 and a red. That says pay 1 red. I'm sorry, just pay red. You may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. That creature gains haste. Sacrifice the creature at the beginning of the next end step. Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, this is redundancy.
Self-explanatory.
And it's also cheaper. So if you can get this out, if you find it, we don't really have any way to tutor it. But if you find it, it's a single red mana to do this, and that's nutty.
I mean, yeah, that's magical Christmas land time.
All right, so up next, we've got a really interesting one. This is Mimic Vat. This is a 3-mana artifact. And it says, whenever a non-token creature dies, you may exile that card. If you do, return each other card exiled with Mimic Vat to its owner's graveyard. And then 3 and tap, create a token that's a copy of a card exiled with Mimic Vat. It gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. Okay, so this is another kind of redundancy thing here, but you sneak something out with Purphoros, you got Mimic Vat in play, you sacrifice it in a turn, exile it under Mimic Vat, and then now, for the rest of the game, 3 mana, tap, make that thing.
Yeah.
Like, you get to do some really crazy things. I'm not even sure what happens if you do something crazy with, like, World Gorger Dragon on this. Like,
I mean... I don't even want to think about it too crazy.
I'm not sure. Folks out there in audience land, let me know if that's crazy or if it doesn't work. It probably doesn't work. But
There's no telling. This next card, I'm very interested to see how you plan on using this card, because this is a very Ryan Green card in my opinion. It's Final Fortune, red, instant. Take another turn after this one. You can't just have 1 turn in a row, Ryan. You always gotta have 2 or 4.
It's like Lay's potato chips. You can't have just 1,
right? And it says at the end of that turn, you lose the game. So, Ryan, how are you going to win 2 turns? I mean, I feel like it's pretty easy, but let's hear it.
Yeah, okay. So this card gives you some late game reach, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you know what? I've got the
you want to do this on turn 2?
No.
Okay.
Probably not. Although, you could do it sooner than the end game in this deck because of a little card called Sundial of the Infinite.
Yeah, in the... oh, my goodness, dude.
Yep.
At the end of that... Oh, man. Does that work?
It absolutely works. I definitely Google searched it and made sure of it before I put it in the deck.
I was going to say, I was like, you sure? Oh, man, that is ridiculous.
It's a 2-mana extra turn spell.
Oh, my gosh, dude.
Sweet. It's totally sweet. In mono red.
I'm getting this card. I'm getting these cards.
Right? And here's the deal. We have ways to find Sundial of the Infinite, right? We can use Goblin Engineer to go find it. Right? I don't know. It's a little bit Magic Christmas Land to include it, but I think even in the base case, even if you don't have Sundial, there's going to be games that you can win with this card that you wouldn't be able to otherwise win. And, you know, you're wheeling a whole bunch, so maybe this card is in your hand early and you can't really use it and you throw it away to a Dragon Mage, and that's fine. Like, I think it's okay. I think that card is really cool in here, and that's the way I like to play Commander.
No, I mean, I love it because it's like, well, I got to win or I'm going to die.
The stakes have never been higher.
Right? Like
time for a final fortune.
I feel like that's how I like to play the Magic. So, yeah, man, like this deck is really sweet. I'm impressed. Like I hope you build it because I want to play it now for real.
I mean, let's be honest here. Shout out to the mothership. I've already purchased the Sundial of the Infinite.
Oh, did you? Did you last night?
No, it was like a week ago.
Did you send it to me in that picture with the other card?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering what that was about.
I was like, I need Sundial in my life. It's so perfect for Purphoros. Perfect for Purphoros.
Right.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So like you said, this deck is pretty sweet. There's nothing better than having a sneak attack in the command zone, and Purphoros lets you do that. But out there in audience land, what do you think of this deck?
Right.
Does this sound like something you want to play? Are you as excited about it after hearing this episode as we are? Because I know, like, I am really pumped about this, and I don't have a lot of these dragons. I'm probably going to have to go on a dragon finding mission and get some of these like big giant flying monsters.
You're gonna be like what? Ron Weasley's brother that like does from Harry Potter that like does all the dragons and stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I like it.
All right. So did we miss anything?
Yeah.
Right? What are some cards that you would include in here? I actually, did a Scryfall search for all of the red creatures. And then I sorted by converted mana cost descending. And I was like, started with like, and I was like, okay, once I get down to like 5, I'll stop. Right. But I looked at every red creature that costs like between like 11 and 5. And I was like, let's pick the best ones, right?
Yeah.
And I did the same thing with artifacts, right? And yeah, you could put like a Blightsteel in here or whatever, but I didn't really go that route. I wanted to go like a more fun, quirky route.
Yeah.
And I think we got there.
I think you've achieved that. Yeah.
Special thanks to our super patrons. You can check us out at patreon.com/commandersocial and join at the Your Name in Lights tier if you want to be here as well.
So, thanks for getting to the end of the episode. We hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget, if you want to help us out, you can tell a friend or maybe help us out at patreon.com/commandersocial. But until next week, I'm Zach Taylor.
And I'm Ryan Green.
Saying,
keep it social.